All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's press conference. The Blue Raiders will prepare to go on the road for the first time this season on Saturday at Ole Miss. Kickoff is set for 3:15, and the game will be shown on the SEC Network. So to get things started, I'd like to bring up Coach Mason at this time. He'll have an opening comment and then be available for any questions. If you're on Zoom, please remember to use the raise your hand function, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Coach.
Good morning. Happy Labor Day, and I hope everybody's doing well. It's Ole Miss week for us, week 2 for us of the college football season, and we're excited to be in preparation right now. We've got to travel down to Ole Miss to play an extremely talented Ole Miss football team led by head coach Lane Kiffin. Last week, that group put up 76 points versus Furman. We know and understand how vaunted this group is, being in the top 10, extremely talented. And as I look at how we came out of this past weekend, hey, man, a lot to learn about our football team. We learned a lot, and we've got a little bit of work to do in preparation for what we have to see heading down there. But I'm excited about where we sit. Again, spend some time with our football team, just talking about, like us, really, you have to fix the things within your organization, especially early in the season, because it's about how we play, what we do, and then what you have to do is launch your schemes and your abilities in a chess match, trying to make sure that you can put guys in the proper position and let guys go play fast. So with that being said, I'll turn it over for questions.
Coach, you faced Coach Kiffin a number of times when you were in the SEC, whether he was a coordinator or a head coach. Mm-hmm. What's the key to containing his offenses, over the years as a defense?
I got to give a lot of respect, and really what we have to know and understand, he's one of the most respected offensive minds in college football. When you talk about him, you talk about Sark. I mean, those guys are terrific at being able to play the chess match of players. It's not really their X's and O's, it's how they find ways to get players the ball, because their best players are always going to get touches, right? And now that falls on, Charlie Wise Jr., and we've seen him be very pronounced as a play caller in what he does, and I think it's great when you have, two offensive minds that are able to link together and collaborate, right? And that's sort of what myself and Coach Stu, are doing now, man. You just try to be collaborative in your process. So when you play these types of teams, man, you know what a Lane Kiffin team's going to look like. It's going to be, explosive shots. There's going to be opportunities to run the football. You're going to get tempo. These are hallmarks of really what they do. But it's all built around the simple fact that they like explosive plays. They're going to find ways to run the football. And Jackson Dart provides a different type of sort of threat, because there's always the possibility of QB run. So with that being said, you have to play 11-man football.
Obviously, their defense, had maybe even more impressive Saturday against Furman. FCS teams had some success, held to 0 points, in Vaught Hemingway. What did you see from them, on tape, particularly that defensive front that had a good day on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, they're talented across the front, right? I think football's a line of scrimmage game, and it starts up front. So, with that, Coach Golden has been around the game a long time. Whether we talk about UTSA, whether we talk about, Stints Bama, all these things matter. When you talk about having a library of football, right? And he knows how to put his players in position. A very talented group on the back end, good at the second level in terms of their ability to track, hit, key, and diagnose. They've got speed all over the field. A couple of those guys I remember. We had J.J. Pegues when I was at Auburn. So just a full understanding that this group is a talented group. They're going to deploy different types of schemes to sort of pressure and confuse your quarterback. They want to own the line of scrimmage. And Coach Golden will have this team prepared to hold up on the edges.
Derek, you talked about fixing things after game one. There were certain things you looked at. How were you guys able to get started on that on Sunday?
Yeah, we came out yesterday on a Sunday, looked at the film, quickly, because you have to turn the page. You look at what you did, but then you go out on the field, you make a couple of corrections, and then it's right back to fundamentals, right? Fundamentals of special teams. There's some things special teams wise that we did really good. There's some things that we needed to clean up, so we started there, and then we went right to the idea of, man, what we have to do offensively and defensively. And again, these things sort of get flushed out. Last game gets flushed out. New opportunities sort of present themselves. With it being a new day, you sort of split your day between the old and the new. And I think our guys had a chance to sort of look at how this team presents itself, how Ole Miss presents itself, because that's important. You have to know what you're going against, and really just keep it about your fundamentals on a Sunday, but really start to learn your opponent so that on a day like today, which is their off day, they get an opportunity to go through the tape, figure out, what the matchups are, who these guys that we line up against, what are the individual matchups going to look like, and then what you can do is sort of start to get into the game plan as we talk a Tuesday morning practice.
As much as you learned during practice, during fall camp, how much more do you learn when you actually watch a game tape and get that first one behind you?
Yeah, like the first one, like to me, is the biggest, right? Because, what your tape is who you are. What deficiencies you put on tape, that's where teams attack. Okay, and obviously Ole Miss didn't have very many deficiencies. Okay, we showed some. So, for us, they're going to work on them. We're going to work on us. We know and understand that we've got to be proactive. Okay, and say, well, hey, this is probably going to show up. They ran surprise like to the boundary. Them being Tennessee Tech. Ole Miss has that in their arsenal. From the boundary, from the field, they find, 5 or 6 different ways to run it. So to think that we're not going to see it, that's great teach tape for us in terms of how we play it in our mans, how we play it in our zones. Those things are the things I think will apply from week to week. So for us, I think watching their tape will give our guys a good head start as to what they can expect. The one thing about Ole Miss that people don't understand is that not only do they have talented players and do what they do it fast. They do it extremely fast. So you have to be pronounced, even though you have player to coach. Player to coach will help a little bit, but when it's going fast, man, you still have to be able to get guys lined up and make sure that they can get off the ball and do their jobs. Because if not, as they're looking to the sideline, a guy may be running right past you with the football.
Coach, you're going up at quarterback, Jackson Dart.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to contain a quarterback of his caliber?
Yeah, Jackson Dart seems like he's been playing for like 6 years, right? I mean, I've seen Jackson, since he was a young guy, and he's always had this, competitive aura about him. When you talk about containing him, I think what you really want to do, man, you try to pressure and confuse like the quarterback a little bit, man. But with dudes like him, you got to be careful, because what he will do, off the RPO game is dice you up if you leave him with edges. Man, he'll attack those edges in the run game. But where he's matured in his game and become very pronounced is he keeps his eyes up the field. I think that's a Lane Kiffin trait with older quarterbacks in the system. As those guys get better at what they do, those guys can scramble, but they scramble to throw, right? He can run all day long, but he keeps his eyes down the field, and I think that's where he can get dangerous because if you drop coverage, he'll find it. And he did it. He did it last week, and that's one of those things for us that we have to be aware of. You have to be disciplined in your mans and zones versus him, but you also have to make sure that you wrap tackle him because his body is the build of a running back. Okay, he's got quarterback abilities, but he can run the football, and when he puts his shoulder down, he'll run you over.
Coach, you lost 6-year center Julius Pierce last week.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to fill that gap?
Yeah, it's always a next man up mentality in football. You're always talking to guys. I mean, that goes from spring to summer to fall. You're always talking next man up. Julius, unfortunately sustained an injury that everybody saw him, and he was carted off the field. And we'll miss him. But the idea that football stops there, it doesn't, right? We got back in. Guys understand their roles. It'll change up a little bit on the offensive line, and what we have to do now is adapt and adjust, and you get days to do it. So with that being said, I think it's always been about this idea that offensive line players are always going to have to be rotational. So you want those guys to be as flexible as they can be. And that's where I think we are right now. We've got rotational players that can go from center to guard to tackle, and that's what we're going to have to do this week.
Right now, we've got a couple questions on Zoom. We'll get started with Jared Redding.
Hey, Derek. Jared Redding, 24/7 Sports. You touched on it a second ago, having J.J. McGee and you're the defensive coordinator at Auburn. I was just curious, were you there at Auburn when the decision was ultimately made to move him from offense to defense? And if so, what gives him that qualities to be an SEC defensive lineman?
Good morning, Jared. J.J. Pegues is one of the most freakish athletes like I've ever seen. Like J.J. played running back, quarterback, everything coming out of high school, and he the offense wasn't built around having a tight end there initially, and so with him, I think he was recruited there by the prior staff, because I was on Harson's staff, and to look at his abilities, they were just going to waste because he really didn't fit what was wanted there. So JJ moves to the other side of the ball, and you saw it. You saw the fast twitch. You saw the quickness. You saw the strength. I mean, JJ was like 300 pounds and running, like high 4 or like high 4.6, low 4.7s. I mean, he was like 4.73, 4.69 at 300 pounds. The dude was just a freakish athlete. So that it only made sense. I've taken a lot of offensive players over the years, and they've come to defense, and they've had the opportunity to flourish a little bit. And JJ was just getting to that point. D-line coach Nick Eason, who's now at Clemson, had him, and he said, like, the young man's going to be special. He just needed time, right? Because when you make that change, Jared, it doesn't come easy. To go from offense to defense, it's a different mentality. But you saw the abilities in this young man, for sure.
All right, next up on Zoom, Noah Maddox.
Good morning, Coach. Noah Maddox with Sherwood Farmers Gazette. Just kind of a two-part question, but as alluded to earlier, starting center goes down. Having to rotate offensive line a little bit going into an SEC environment. What kind of challenges does that pose, and how are you guys working to keep the the offense rolling at the pace it's supposed to? And then secondly, in your time at Vanderbilt, you did go to Ole Miss and coach a couple games there. What kind of things can you learn, or can you help with the team that you learned in those games at Ole Miss to prepare for a trip to Oxford?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the first question being rotational players, look, you have rotational depth in there, because it's not about just backing a guy up. It's about playing best players or best athletes and moving those guys around. We saw Simon step on the field, and we were able to move the ball down the field late in the ball game and have success. So, like, to me, we're not talking about big changes. We're not talking about wholesale changes, right? We're talking about a guy who's played center, who's been playing center. Just now, I mean, he's doing it full time. So to me, that's not that big of a change. I just talked about rotational depth because you're just trying to get best players on the field. When you go to Ole Miss, it's the best cocktail party in college football. So, getting to that place, it'll be hotty-toddy, a lot of things going on. Our players never really see all that much of it. So, I mean, it doesn't affect us. And when you get into the stadium, it's going to be a great football environment. I think any player in college football wants to go to a place where it's packed, people are excited about the game of football, and I've always tried to pretend that they were rooting for me. So I don't care what big stadium I went to. I was always like, hey, man, I love it, man. It's great to hear the people. It's great to be around the crowd noise, because this is a gladiator sport, and if you're a gladiator, you just want to be in the arena. So I think the atmosphere down at Ole Miss will be one that's exciting for our players. They've been to Alabama. It's not like this is new for half of our football team, but with 60 new players, we'll have some guys sniffing it, smelling it, and hearing it for the first time. So with those guys, we'll just be playing Ole Miss's fight song throughout practice all week so they can get used to it.
Any other questions today for Coach Mason? Oh, got one more on Zoom. Brian McKeegan.
Hey, Coach, what's sort of been the attitude since, Saturday going into now for the team, not for you?
Thanks for the question, Brian. Our team has been focused on, like, the fixes, right? We talk about the good, okay, and the cleanup. In football, the good showed itself. The cleanup is what's got to get done. So I think this group, we started a long time ago with a blue-collar-like mentality. And I think this team has sort of bought into the simple fact that the work is free. We got to show up. And in showing up, we have to be intentional about the work. So I think these guys enjoyed it on Saturday, or really Sunday, because it was like 12:30 a.m. So they enjoyed it on Sunday. They got some rest, woke up on Sunday again to come into the building. And once we got through the tape, I think these guys have really turned the page because they understand once it's in the record books, win or lose, man, you got to move on. And I think that's been their mentality. It's sort of a march, right? Because we talk about the hill to climb. There's hills, there's hurdles. And every week, man, we're just trying to climb this steep hill that is, Conference USA, that's packed in there with some, an SEC and an ACC opponent.
All right, also on Zoom, got another question from Jared Redding.
Hey, Derek, sorry, I just wanted to follow up on my previous question.
Okay.
JJ, just for clarification purposes, did the ball get rolling to moving defense happen before you came in, or was that while you were there?
It's while I was there. Okay, like the transition was happening while I was there. So, I mean, it started in the spring, and obviously as we got to fall, it sort of started to transition.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is there any more questions for Coach Mason? All right, thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you. Again, enjoy your Labor Day. Let's go Blue.
All right, everyone, it's now time for our student athletes. With us today is wide receiver Omari Kelly and defensive tackle DeMonte Smith, and we'll get started with Omari.
Amari, Coach Mason just talked about, the Ole Miss defense and the talent they have, the speed they have at all levels. What are you seeing from them as you guys start the film study this week that you're preparing for in Oxford?
The main thing I'm seeing is that they're obviously going to be bigger and faster than Tennessee Tech team that we played last week. So I feel like that's really the major thing that we're going to have to focus in on and hone in on.
Ole Miss is a place where, you made one of your catches for Auburn, in your freshman season, one of the first moments you sort of got to shine on the field. What do you remember about that play specifically and about playing, in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium?
It wasn't really the route I was supposed to run, so that's really the main thing I remember. But it was a really good atmosphere. It started off a little bit slow, I feel like just because of the fact that it was kind of a close game at first. But I feel like once the intensity kind of picked up on both sides of the ball, the stadium atmosphere also picked up.
Well, you got to make your impact early with the Blue Raiders this past week, that big fourth down catch, to keep the drive going against Tennessee Tech. Walk us through that play and sort of what happened on it and how you were able to set the team up, for Frank's big run at the end.
Well, it was really just Nick trusting me being in the right spot. I can't really take much of the credit because I wouldn't have even been in that position if he didn't trust me, and the rest of the O-linemen and everybody else trusted me too. So I feel like that was mainly just them having trust in me.
Saturday night was certainly an ebb and flow kind of night where you guys started out super crisp and ended very crisply. How do you take that and move it into Sunday's practice and then again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and keep building till Saturday?
I would say taking the momentum that we ended with and just applying it to everything we do, maintaining that same intensity that we had at the end of the game, carry it throughout the week and take it into Saturday with us.
Omari, you're going up against a talented SEC defense. Is there anything you can just clearly take advantage of?
That's a good question. I'd say just like Coach Mason said, it's gonna have to be guerrilla warfare, a dogfight. So just keeping that mentality with me, just trying to take advantage of every opportunity I get.
Coach Mason's mentioned a lot about cleaning up, what you can clean up on film. What's maybe one point of emphasis for the wide receivers this week on something you have to clean up from Saturday?
One thing we talked about was straining when blocking downfield and making sure we're more consistent with our route detail and whenever we're blocking.
Anything else for Omari? Thanks, Omari. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
All right, next up is
Devontae, a lot of talk about the skill guys that Ole Miss has all over the field, but in the trenches they've obviously been very successful as well. What do you see from the Ole Miss offensive line as y'all start to get into your scout this week?
I see that they real physical, they big, they strong, but like they good up front, they real good up front. That's why they one of the best in SEC.
The scheme's a little different for you guys up front this year, where you're having some more help from the outside backers, getting pressure at times from either side of the line. How does it affect what you're doing on the inside of the line, where you could have pressure coming from either side?
I mean, we got good edge rushers. I mean, as long as they stick the course and push the pocket, that's what we taught at Vision Line Rush. So we just take coaching and try to apply it the best we can on the field.
DeMonte, they like to play fast, play tempo. From a defensive lineman standpoint and from rotations and being able to get lined up, how do you process that, and what are the things that in your mind you've got to do? Okay, play's over, get lined back up. Talk a little bit about the challenges of facing a team that plays a very high tempo.
I think that it comes from your preparation during practice during the week. Like as a defensive lineman going against a team like Ole Miss, I feel like you have to really practice like a linebacker, like just run all over the field, just try to get in shape during the week, day by day, all the way up until Saturday, and try to you got to have that dog mentality on the field.
Coach said he's going to play the Ole Miss fight song all week. By the end of the week, are you tired of that and kind of make you mad when you want to play? Don't want to hear it anymore?
I don't even know how to answer that. I feel like I love to hear it because we going on their field and their atmosphere. I mean, it's a big crowd. It really just gonna bring us some juice, really bring us some energy.
anything else for DeMonte?
Same question I ended for Amari with. What's maybe one point of emphasis for you guys in practice to clean up from Saturday this week?
As a defense, I'd say just being intentional, just making sure that we minimize the mistakes and just come play together as a defense.
Is that it? Oh. All right, got one question on Zoom. Noah Maddox.
Morning, Noah Maddox with the Showtime Gazette. Just real quick, the kind of extra challenges that facing a quarterback like Jackson Dart has will pose to defensive line, and just you guys containing them in the pocket. How are you guys going to be able to do that this week and working on that in practice?
I'd say just being disciplined with our rushes, staying in our gaps, try to antagonize and be in his face a lot, just trying to get him on his heels and make him panic a little bit, see what he's capable of for real.
Anything else for DeMonte? Thanks, DeMonte.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, that concludes today's press conference. Thanks for being with us. Reminder, we'll be back here next week as the Blue Raiders prepare for Conference USA play. Thank you.